You're a nice guy, Joel. That's all I can really say about you.
I heard you clicking really fast, and that's why I stopped talking.
It's a good idea. I'm going to start. So you guys better stop with that, like white nationalist talk that you're into.
Right.
Crazy shit. That is not true, everybody. That was a joke. Joel is not a maniac.
Clarifying.
Yeah. Welcome to Practical Shooting After Dark. We're here to talk about shooting. We got Mr. Park and Mr. Kim.
Hello, everyone. The Korean brothers.
Yeah,
Yes.
the Korean bros.
There's 25% of Korean people are Kim and 18% are Park.
Yeah.
Yes. A lot of Parks.
There's too many, in fact. The world could use a few less. Wouldn't you say?
You're not the first person to tell me that, yes.
All right, guys, you know the rules. Everybody comes here with a topic or something to discuss. Maybe a show and tell, something that pisses you off you'd like to talk about. Man, we could talk about a few things that piss me off.
Good. Proper
probably
calibration.
Yeah. Calibration? Oh, there you go. Or, you could just talk about shooting. That would be also another option.
Yep.
So I'll lead off today. Joel, you want me to talk about how I pick the things to tell people to improve.
Yeah. So you're
In a class or in a training group feedback or
you
whatever.
see a guy shoot. It doesn't matter. I don't care what classification. They shoot this little drill, and I'm sitting back. I'm like, okay, I see. Obviously, they're not gripping the gun hard enough. Okay, yeah, the position entry, the gun wasn't up. Oh, their feet are too close together. Then I'm like, well, how do you pick which one of those things to give the person? Because you don't want to give them 10 things because it's going to be too much for them to do. Yeah.
It's impossible.
So how do you pick what to tell them?
How do you pick? All right, so let's say there's three things, like a scale of three things. Number one, how important is the thing to that person's final result in the match? So how much effect is that having on a score? So, for example, from watching somebody shoot and they are consistently running themselves out of ammo on some poppers because they're shooting like a dumbass and missing a lot, doing standing reloads, that's very destructive for your score on a stage. So that would be a pretty big deal. And the next part would be, how easy is the thing to fix? Right?
Okay.
So there's how damaging is it for the score? How easy is it to fix? And in a class setting, then there's applicability to the thing that we're doing. So if we're working on movement, I'm probably not going to talk about marksmanship fundamentals, no matter how important I think it is. Because you've been in enough classes, Joel, you know that there's some people where it's like, a lot of people, you could just be like, we could make the whole class about marksmanship fundamentals, and you wouldn't be bored. That person shouldn't be bored.
Well,
they probably would be bored, but they shouldn't be.
Would it be fair to say that like there's stuff that they can't fix in 2 days anyway? So
Yeah.
You're just giving them like, hey, this is how it should look. This is what to look for when you're doing it wrong. But I don't expect you to be perfect at it by tomorrow afternoon.
Well, you know me. My classes are basically like it's a how to practice thing.
Mhm.
It's not like you're going to go to the thing and be better. I mean, that happens a little, but not really. It's mostly like, hey, this is what you should work on and how to work on it, and people like either take that or leave it. It's kind of up to them. But yeah, like the important thing, assessing your shooting or somebody else's, it's like, hey, what effect does this have on the score, and then how easy is it to fix? Those are the big ones. So a thing that has a huge effect on somebody's score, like marksmanship fundamentals, but it's hugely challenging to get a lot better at it. All right, that's fine. But then having understanding how to visualize your way through a stage. I mean, imagine take somebody who doesn't even walk the stage and just tries to shoot the stage.
Like getting lost.
Yeah. So making a stage plan, visualizing it, doing the walkthrough, step away from the side, do your mental rehearsals a couple times before the person in front of you shoots. Like giving somebody that, that doesn't take very long to implement that into your game, and it has hugely helpful for your score.
Sure.
So that'd be a big one that you'd want to figure that out really early. And most people that show up to a class for me, like they already have that. So that's not something I talk about, but that would be a big one to fix. Whereas a C class person working on the nuances of how to do a drop step out of a leaning position, for example.
It's like,
That's not that hard to learn that technique and understand when to apply it, but it's not going to help somebody in C class that much.
right.
So that's the way it is. So I'm always kind of doing this calculus. So for me, when I'm doing a review on Training Group, you might see that I like to pick 3 things to talk about for any review. I say like, talk about 2-3 things, and give somebody a path to fix it. It's usually like the biggest deal that is the easiest to fix with whatever they're showing me, whether it's a training video or a match video.
Yeah, and that could be out of a 9-minute video too, where you're not, hey, maybe they fumbled the reload once, but the rest of the whole 9 minutes it was perfect. Like, why would you focus on that when there's other things that would benefit them more?
Right.
Is that fair to say?
Unless it's a private, like let's say it's a gold member who I have 50 videos 50 video reviews I've done for that person.
Mm-hmm.
We've talked about lots of other stuff, and I'm like, hey, this is something interesting for you to talk about. I might talk about something really tiny like that. It just depends on, because if you have a relationship with somebody, you kind of over time, then you kind of cover ground, and you don't really see the point of covering the same ground again. You just talk about something else.
That makes
But
sense.
yeah, that's how I do it, and I imagine that most instructors probably think the same way. Maybe not. I don't know, but I think the smart ones do. They're like, hey, this would be easy to fix and be super helpful, and the people should key in on that stuff. Nailed it.
Appreciate it. That was outstanding.
Mr. Kim, what do you got?
Yes, I brought something out again. So this is eyelid wipe. So I've been using for a while now. So for me, it is really important to keep my eyes open as wide as possible when I'm shooting. First, I have, as you can see, very tiny Asian eyes. So if I squint my eyes, I lose a lot of field of view. So, I mean, everybody, even if you have really big eyes, if you squint your eyes, you will immediately notice the darkness will, come tighter. Basically, you're losing your field of view if you squint.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a couple reasons people, like first couple stages, they open their eyes wide, and then as time goes, like 5th stage, 6th stage, people may tend to squint a little bit more. It could be due to your eyelash picking things up, and there's materials in your eyes like sand, or sometimes it gets oily as well. So if the oil goes into your eyes, it's gonna be very bad, or sweating, any kind of reasons. So I always carry this eyelid wipe in my range bag, a couple of those. You can definitely get like your local pharmacy, like Walgreens or at Walmart, anywhere. But this, something you shouldn't buy though is eyelid wipe that you have to rinse your eyes. That's too much steps. There's eyelid wipes that you can just wipe off and just throw it away and don't need to worry about it. When you actually use them, I use them at least one a day, like six stages match, like at the end of 5th stage or something. I usually wipe it off, then I can definitely feel my eyes are more refreshed, and there's no sand on your eyelash or anything like that. So you should definitely have it in your range backpack all the time. And whenever you feel like there's oil or sweat or sand, because it's desert, you gotta just wipe them out. Then you'll have a way better time keeping your eyes open without any feelings.
This match in Utah really traumatized you.
It did. Like,
you added 2 things to your range bag?
Yes. Mask and eyelid wipe, for sure.
All right.
Yeah.
Mr. Joel.
Tell
me something good.
I'll try. I want to talk about reviewing training material that I've already viewed. So
what?
I know. Just talking about. Well, it's been my experience that as my skills improved, I've also been able to understand training material to a deeper level than I probably did the first time I read it. So there have been times that there was so much information, or it was just beyond my ability, that I just couldn't absorb it all at the time. So I'm reading through the pages, but it's just not really sinking in. So it might have been a book, video, podcast, interview, whatever. But a recent example for me, I was rewatching the class dump from Ben's classes in Omaha earlier this year. So at the time, I was trying to make sure I got everything on video, but I was also paying attention, trying to learn. There's a lot going on. I was in one of the classes, so I was worried about my own performance also, and like having my mags loaded and that
Joel,
kind of stuff. So
one training group plug. I've just completed a class dump that's going to go in there from some class I did in Wisconsin, and I'll do a skills and drills class dump for Atlanta.
Ooh.
So
Let's
by
go.
the maybe the end of by the end of November, limited nationals talk through from me. Then these 2 class dumps and probably some other stuff is going to be in training group. In addition to whatever the hell Kim's working on for that 6-8 week period.
Well, tomorrow's going to be a slow day, so drop me that link and I will watch that tomorrow.
Fine.
So basically,
Now.
yeah, that works perfect. But I've also listened to podcasts like interviews or just regular episodes, and there's always something I forgot. Or rewatching that class dump, like, hey, there's little things I forgot about that maybe Ben instructs it or teaches it a different way. I'm like, oh yeah, I kind of forgot about that. So I think it's just good for jogging your memory. I've listened to like same deal with podcasts where maybe I was at work multitasking and something went over my head or I wasn't paying attention. So, I don't think you should reread the same book every month or listen to something on repeat. But especially as this, winding down their training, you're going into the off season. I think it's helpful as you're planning for the future, just to like maybe reread a book that you read a couple years ago that you thought was really helpful, or like that class dump, rewatch it and just.
I just put it up for you, Joel. It's in the moderator chat.
My man, I love it. So I like to always be learning though, so I think that's a good idea.
Yes. All right. Well, Joel, I wholeheartedly agree with you. I also reread old training materials, and my knowledge grows over time, so my understanding of what I'm seeing grows and changes too. Like I think differently than I used to, I think.
I think winter is a great season to do that.
Yeah. Well, and I think sometimes there's probably better ways to explain it, and sometimes it's like, hey, I kind of forgot, that somebody explained it this way, and that really makes sense to me, or I forgot about that, or oh, I meant to try that in my practice, and then I just spaced it off and I never did it. So, as people have a lot of downtime during the winter, I think it's a good idea.
Yep.
Should we do a question?
Yeah.
Yes.
Whenever you have free time, I don't want to cut into your emails.
Wasn't an email, Joel. Hey, Charlie. Charlie's now awoken. And he stuck his head out of his little bag.
It's from all that clickety clack.
No, I was taking care of your thing, Joel, so I don't forget.
Oh, now you're talking.
I'm ignoring the needs of all the listeners and taking care of you instead. You should be happy.
I would have bothered you. You would not have forgot, I promise. Like, hey, Ben, you're on a plane, but I need this.
All right. Here's an interesting one. Yo, I could use some perspective here. What changes do you need to make to a training program that's made you a GM to now make you a nationally competitive GM? He's talking about top 10 at nationals. Here's some background that you don't necessarily need to read along with the question, or just no. Like I don't think the background's helpful because it'll take this. You guys will get fixated on Steel Challenge, and I don't want that. So anyway, how do you go from GM to nationally competitive GM?
I wish I knew. Kim, tell me the secrets.
No, Kim didn't do this. Kim went from nationally competitive B class to nationally competitive GM.
That was because of Walter for the payday, though.
Yeah, he was being a little fucker.
I wouldn't deny it.
Yeah, I went from GM to nationally competitive GM. I've done this transition. So I can tell you what worked for me, or what some thoughts I had that worked for me. So number one, my mentality from the start was that making GM isn't like the end of anything. It's like my thinking was I'm going to make GM first, That'll be my first goal, to make sure that I can do the things the way I'm supposed to do the things, and then I can worry about going and competing with guys that are really good at shooting. That was my thinking from the beginning. So it was never part of my thinking that once I made GM, I had made it, or I was anything special even. It was like, if you have the mentality that making GM is like, oh, now I'm special or something, like I think you got to get rid of that. Like it's not helping you. So making GM, just make that mean nothing in your brain, and then worry about being competitive with people at nationals. So what I did, I would say first, was immerse myself in what nationally competitive GM shooting looked like. So it was the old 2005 Limited Super Squad DVD. I think I've watched that hundreds of times, literally hundreds of times. I definitely made sure that I ignored what anyone was doing at the club level, and that was for better or worse. And that wasn't to be an asshole. It was just like, none of the people at my club are trying to do this thing I'm trying to do. So if they come up and compliment me, I don't care. If they have something negative to say to me, I don't care about that either. I'm just going to do my thing, because there's so few people and they're so spread out that are really competitive at a high level in this. Some, like, doing good at my club match means nothing. It means less than nothing. It's like, who give a fuck about winning club matches? It doesn't matter. And this was my attitude when I started. I was thinking like, well, it would make sense that if I want to be really good, winning club matches at my club, like, unless I'm shooting at Rio Salado, winning club matches at my club should not challenge me. It should be easy to do. So you got to shift your mentality. Like, club matches mean shit. And then you start understanding what it actually takes to be competitive at nationals, and that's the big picture, the whole picture. How much are those guys training? What kind of skill level those guys have on standard drills? How are they doing at their club matches? Which, anybody who's competitive nationally, they go to their club matches and they fuck people up, man. They hurt people's feelings. So and then it was what level of sort of involvement, professionalism at the sport, like, what do I want to have? And I bring that to my club matches and my section matches, and I go try to really kind of become the type of person who's competitive at nationals on every level. My training is right. I'm training enough. I'm training a lot. I'm doing the same drills that those guys can do to the right level. Like, I have the same sort of core skills, like, under the hood. Like, basically, I find my shooting is a car. I want to make sure that I at least have the same engine displacement as the other guys. I have the same horsepower. I can do the same things on some level. So I started, making myself into that. And it's a very different mentality than making GM, because making GM is pretty straightforward. You've got to hit these numbers on these fairly straightforward tests. And I did a lot of thinking about my mindset. So what actually got me to be national champion was changing my mindset around, where I wasn't even really in a race with anybody else. I really didn't care what other people were doing. I just knew, like, hey, if I do this thing, this is going to work for me eventually. Maybe not at this nationals, but at some nationals somewhere down the line, I will eventually win one if I adopt this strategy. So that's what I did. Does that make sense?
Yep, totally.
I like it.
Well, I mean, it's a complete shift in your mindset. And, like, what I'm talking about is alien enough to most people that they're just like, yeah, they have no interest in doing that stuff, which is fine, by the way. You got to be a little nuts to be really competitive at anything. Like, the guys who are super competitive are crazy about it, really crazy. Well, there we go, guys.
I like it.
I would say that was one of my change too. Like, from 2016 to 2017, that year, 2016, I was hitting all those part-times and stuff like that. But when I was analyzing my score from nationals, I wasn't just, my success rate or consistency was just nowhere near the top people. But when you actually look at my good stage, you would probably think, oh, this national top shooter and this Hwan-Sik Kim guy, this one stage, he can actually do like what they do. But in terms of the whole match, consistency wasn't there, and then there was also mindset issue. And another thing is, after I changed my mindset, I started thinking, how can I actually be like national competitive shooter? And then the biggest change in my training was actually, hey, those guys typically shot 10 years plus, and I was assessing how I am not executing it as consistently as them. So in my training, I started doing visualizing, because people typically visualize every time you go to stage, but at the time I wasn't visualizing anything in my practice. So hey, if I want to do, for example, plus minus when you're in elementary school, you can't do it. You have to use your fingers. It takes time. But once you do like 10 years, you don't have to think about it. And that's what I assessed. Oh, those guys who shot 10 years, they already have the brain developed to memorize faster, visualize better. So I started visualizing in my walkthrough and really focus on executing what I visualized in my training. So basically, I was trying to make what I do at matches exactly in my training, which is, you do walkthrough, visualize, memorize, and then execute that. And I started training that, and the next year I just, big jump.
Let's go, baby. Well, Joel, you going to take that on board?
I will do my best, sir.
Well, no, I mean, what really did it for me was I made a decision that I was okay going all in on this sport for like a decade or two, all in and never winning nationals.
I agree with that. Yeah.
That decision helped me a lot.
Yeah, I think it's like an awareness also. If you know you're going to get in, I mean, yeah, you might not get anything out of it, and realizing that you have to put in that level of commitment if you want to have those type of results.
Absolutely. Well, as I recall, I had just gotten home from a nationals that went terribly for me, largely due to getting fucked on a popper calibration. Ass fucked real hard.
Oh boy.
And I just thought about it. I'm like, I can live with, like, if I just go all in for like 10, 20 years, eventually the stars will align and I can win something if I'm dedicated for that whole time, and I can just eat shit like I'm eating right now. Yeah. Well, as I recall, this was like 10 years ago, but I do remember that pretty distinctly.
Well, I think it's even important to have awareness too. Then the people listening that don't have any intentions of ever being a national champion, just being aware, like, hey, if you put in this amount of level, you might win your club matches. But hey, if you don't practice at all, or you dry fire once a week, then don't expect to win your club matches. If there's, like a stacked or your section match or whatever.
Well, I mean, it works both. It works a lot of ways. So what I've always thought for people is, like, if you're a reasonably fit dude and you're dedicated, maybe you got a little bit of talent, but you dedicate yourself to your sport and you work your way up. Like, I think top 16 is a pretty good goal at nationals. Mm-hmm. Like, that's an that really is an achievement. If you look down the list of top 16 at nationals, it's going to be, you'll know a lot of the names on there. You'll be like, yeah, these cats are all pretty good. And you have to put a lot in to finish top 16 at nationals even once. You're going to put a lot in. Mm-hmm. So you could just assess what you want your goals to be and what you think is reasonable for you. I mean, you don't have to be anything. You don't have to be special to do pretty well at a club level. I mean, it just takes training and dedication. Winning national championships is different. It's that's a lifestyle choice, and you have to be at the right point in your life to make that choice. If you are just getting into shooting at age 50, that's probably not a choice that's available to you. Or if it was, you'd be the first person, I would think, to do something like that. But anybody could assess the same ideas, or like look at how do I get to the next level for me, and then decide how to do that. So yeah, that's my spiel.
Love it.
Okay, guys, thank you so much for coming on. I really do appreciate you doing the podcast. Mr. Kim, Mr. Park,
thank you so much for having me.
Love you both. And listeners, if you have a question you'd like for us to ramble about, we'd be happy to do so. So go to benstegger.com, send me your question, and get your eyelid wipes from hkimproshop.com or wherever. Oh my God.